After they stopped to get a replacement phone, they went home and cleaned up broken glass, while waiting for the window repairman and the police to arrive. After both had come and gone, Dave felt the repairman had offered better advice. The officer had just said to call again if they had any more trouble. The repair guy suggested they buy a shotgun. They had a short talk and decided to stay in the house rather than getting a motel room. They also felt it was a good idea for Jake to stay overnight at Joy's. With those two issues settled, Dave grabbed his keys and said he'd be back shortly. "Where are you going?" Nikki wanted to know. "To get a shotgun." "Really? Just like that? You're going to go buy a gun? You don't think we should talk about this?" "What's to talk about?" Dave asked. "You heard the cop. He'll be more than happy to come out and take another report after another crime is committed. That doesn't help us during a crime. If this guy ever comes to our home again, I want us to be able to deal with him in some way that doesn't involve ducking or hiding and hoping we're able to call the police after he's finished with us. I've read that more often than not, people end up having their own guns used against them when their homes are invaded. That's probably because they waited too long to pull the trigger. I won't have that problem." "But what if I do, Dave? What if he comes back again and you're not here? You weren't here today when he busted out the window. What if you're not here the next time? Then you'll have to shoot the son of a bitch. What else are we supposed to do, Nikki? Just wait around to be victimized again?" "I'm not sure that taking the law into our own hands is a solution either. I'm not going to hunt him down, but if he comes here, I will defend my wife, my child, and my property. A shotgun is the best home defense weapon. I'll feel a lot safer knowing I can protect you and Jake. The alternative is to call 911 and pray. That's not good enough." "I don't want to get in a fight with you, and I'm not against having a gun in the house as long as we're safe about it. I was just taken by surprise that you didn't talk to me about it first." "I'm sorry. I'm just reacting and dealing with this moment by moment. With the window fixed, our house looks normal again, but I have to say, knowing that there's now a report in a police computer doesn't make me feel any safer. They're going to talk to him. A lot of good that's going to do. It's not like he's going to admit to it and let them haul him off to jail, you know? Maybe someone saw something and with a witness they can arrest him." "But Nikki, they'd only know if someone saw something if they canvassed the neighborhood and talked to all the neighbors. Have you ever heard of the police doing that in response to an assault? Maybe if he'd killed me, yeah, but not after hitting me in the head with my own phone. Besides, we were between his truck and my SUV. I'm pretty sure no one saw anything. He probably planned it that way." "I don't want to stay here alone. I'm coming with you." "Good, then we can learn together how the shotgun works." "You've never shot one before?" she asked. "Not yet, but maybe I'll get lucky soon." On the way to the sporting goods store, Dave called Child and Family Services and asked to speak to Yvonne. It took a while for her to pick up, and when she finally did, Dave asked what the status was on the report he had filed. Yvonne said that she couldn't talk about it due to confidentiality restrictions. "Can you tell me whether or not the child is in safe hands now, or is he still subject to being abused?" "All I can tell you is that the child continues to reside at home, and we will monitor the situation. If he's still there, then he's not safe. You might want to add to your case file that the father attacked me today. I have 13 stitches in my head as a result." "I'm so sorry to hear that, Mr. Parsons." "Do you believe me now that this man is a menace to society and that child is still in danger?" "I'm sorry. We have procedures and protocols, and as I said, there are also confidentiality rules. I hope to God that child isn't harmed again. I thought that calling you would result in him being taken somewhere safe." "I don't know what else to tell you, Mr. Parsons, but I do need to take another call." "I bet that'll do a lot of good. Goodbye." Dave ended the call more angry and frustrated than he had been from the lack of response from the police officer who took a routine report from him as if his bicycle had been stolen. He slammed his phone down on the console between the car seats. "Hey, we just got that. Insurance only covers one phone per year," Nikki chided. "I just can't believe people. This man has assaulted 2 people, one of them a 5-year-old, and no one seems to even give a damn." Dave slammed the palm of his hand on the steering wheel. After they returned with their new home defense weapon, they ate the takeout dinner they'd picked up on the way home. Then they practiced dry firing the shotgun in the backyard. When both of them felt comfortable with loading, unloading, and sliding the action, Dave removed the round from the chamber and put the shotgun on the top shelf in their bedroom closet. They were both exhausted from the long, crazy day, and after Nikki called Joy and talked to Jake for a few minutes and told him she'd pick him up the following day, the two of them got in bed, and Dave turned on the television. He mindlessly changed channels, not paying attention to what was on any of them. Nikki wasn't interested in watching anything either, so she slid her hand down Dave's chest until she reached the waistband of his boxers. "Do you want to?" Dave took hold of her hand and pulled it up to his mouth and kissed it. "I love you, Nikki, and you're incredibly sexy, but believe it or not, I don't want to. Not right now." He let go of her hand and rolled onto his side, his back facing her. She rubbed his back for a few minutes, then stopped abruptly. "Do you smell smoke?" Dave bolted upright, sniffing the air. "Yes!" he exclaimed, jumping out of bed and rushing over to the chair where he'd left his pants. He quickly put them on as Nikki went to the closet to get her own clothes. Dave ran to the door, and when he opened it, smoke poured into the room. He turned around and retrieved the shotgun. "Go out the back door and call 911. I'm going to kill that bastard." "Dave, no!" He ignored her and held his shirt up over his face as he went further into the house. Nikki went to the laundry room and out the door into the backyard, from where she could see smoke rising in the night sky from the other side of the house. If she had to guess, she'd say it was Jake's room that was on fire. Dave saw no one in the living room, but there was heavy smoke and flickering light coming from Jake's room. He wondered why the smoke alarms weren't going off as he ran out the front door, hoping to catch Ron out there. But there was no one outside but two neighbors. One of them was talking on their cell phone, and the other was making a video of the fire with their phone. "Did you see anyone?" Dave yelled at them. They both shook their heads. "Damn him!" Dave ran back up to his house, threw the shotgun on the grass, and turned on the garden hose, and began unspooling it from the hose caddy by the front door. He was still spraying water through the bedroom window when the fire department arrived and ordered him to get away from the house. "It's practically out now. I took care of it," he said defiantly. He wasn't in any danger now when the fire was nearly out, and wasn't inclined to obey orders from a firefighter. But he saw a police car pull up next to the fire truck, so he dropped the hose and let the fireman finish the job. "I know exactly who set this fire," he announced as he approached the officers who had just exited their vehicles. He didn't recognize either of them. He was hoping the one from earlier that day would have come. "Is there anyone inside, sir?" a firefighter called out to him. "My wife is in the backyard, but no one's inside. I'll be right back," he said to the police, and ran to the side of the house. "Nikki!" He returned to the front yard holding his wife's hand. She was crying and shaking her head. When she saw the police, she yelled, "You've got to do something! This man just tried to kill us!" It took a while, and each of them spoke to an officer separately, which really annoyed Dave since this wasn't a domestic issue. But eventually, they explained everything to the police. They were advised to sleep somewhere else, which Dave thought was a stroke of genius. Who would sleep in their fire-damaged house? "Before you go, I want to know what you're going to do about this. I called child services on this bastard, and then he assaulted me. Then I called the police about the assault, and he set my house on fire. Now that I've reported his arson, or attempted murder, whatever he intended, he's probably going to kill me next. What has to happen for you to arrest this man?" "Sir, we'll investigate and do whatever we can do. This isn't the movies where we can just go and arrest anyone we want. We have to acquire evidence and establish a case." "I've got evidence for you. Look at my fucking house. Look at my head. What more do you need? A goddamn corpse on the lawn?" "Please calm down, sir." At the mention of the word lawn, the officer looked over at the grass and saw something shiny. He started walking toward it. "That's mine. I bought it today for home defense. I didn't know I'd be needing a fire extinguisher instead." A fireman came through the front door of the house just then and said, "The batteries on your smoke detectors are not connected. You're lucky you got out in time." "Oh, shit." Dave remembered pulling the batteries partly out when he'd forgotten he was heating leftover pizza one day and had turned it into black smoking wedges. "We're going to head over right now and see if he has an alibi for this," the officer resumed. "What about the assault on me earlier today?" "He had an alibi for that," the officer responded. "Great. Well, I'm glad I have a gun now since he's going to be even more pissed off after giving you his new alibi." "I don't believe this." "Please don't think about taking the law into your own hands. It would be best if you put the shotgun in a safe and dial 911 if you have any trouble. This isn't the movies, Mr. Parsons." "Right," Dave said. "I'll just lay in the smoking ruins of my house with the stitches in my head and give you guys a call to come out and take a third report if he does something else. Maybe next time the coroner can join in the fun." Dave and Nikki spent that night at a local motel. The next morning, they talked to Joy and accepted her invitation to stay with her while dealing with their insurance company and various contractors until their house was habitable again. They felt relatively safe at Joy's, although Dave was sure that if Ron Mackey had more vengeance in mind, he could probably find them. He waited to hear back from the police after the new round of questioning, but no one contacted him. When he called the police department for an update, hoping to hear that Ron had been arrested for at least arson, if not also attempted murder, he got nowhere. His calls were ultimately transferred to a voicemail box for the officer in charge of the investigation. Dave lived in constant fear, but did not reveal this to Nikki, not at first. He didn't want her to be as afraid and worried as he was. He acted as though he had faith in the police and the legal system. Since he had been assaulted while leaving a job, he was terrified it would happen again, and so he postponed all of his appointments indefinitely. He found it nearly impossible to get to sleep because the slightest sound anywhere in the house seemed to be a confirmation that they were under assault. The shotgun allowed for a measure of confidence in being able to defend himself and his family, but he felt incredibly vulnerable whenever he left Joy's house and had nothing but a new cell phone for defense. So he started the process of purchasing a handgun. The salesman at the gun store told him he had to fill out a form, pass a federal background check, and that there was a state-imposed waiting period. Dave found the form to be laughable. It relied on him giving honest answers to questions such as, "Are you under indictment for a felony? Are you mentally ill? Are you a fugitive? Are you a drug addict?" and so on. Would anyone actually answer yes, and thus sabotage their attempt to make a purchase? If so, why bother going into a gun store to begin with? It didn't make sense to him. Only the most extremely honest and perhaps stupid person who didn't know the laws but had every intention of obeying them would disqualify himself and leave empty-handed. "I guess drug dealers, serial killers, and assassins lie on these forms?" Dave asked the salesman. The man laughed at Dave's question. "What?" Dave asked, smiling and wanting to know what was so funny. "Criminals don't buy their guns in stores," he said, nearly doubling over now in laughter. It immediately became clear to Dave how stupid his question was now that he looked at it from a different perspective. It made perfect sense that criminals would not subject themselves to legal scrutiny while acquiring tools to be used for committing crimes. Dave did not have much interest in politics, and didn't consider himself to be either left or right on such issues. He was peripherally aware that there were constant calls for additional gun laws to reduce crime, but he'd never given much thought to the issue. As he considered it now, as one who was attempting to purchase a firearm, it seemed ludicrous to think that laws were going to affect criminals. If criminals don't buy their guns in gun stores and go through background checks, then all of these laws don't do anything except prevent unqualified, honest people from buying guns, Dave thought aloud. "Yep," the salesman replied. "I must be missing something here." "What do you mean?" "Well, there's a big roaring debate in this country between opposing sides. The NRA people against the gun control people. But you're telling me the whole thing is actually pointless?" "No, I wouldn't say pointless. Let's say a guy gets dumped by his girl, and his first reaction is to want to kill himself. He might feel a bit different about it after the mandatory 3-day waiting period." "I'm sorry, what's your name, sir?" "Ben." "I'm sorry, Ben, But as tragic as suicide is, it's not really a social problem. And if someone really wants to kill themselves, they're probably not going to change their minds just because one method isn't available to them immediately. What's to stop them from taking an overdose or hanging themselves during the waiting period? Okay, but what if the girl dumped him for another guy? And now that he's had some time to think about it, he decides he wants to kill that guy instead of himself. Maybe after the wait, which some states even call a cooling off period, he might be thinking more clearly. But the people calling for additional gun control laws aren't talking about jilted lovers and depressed people. They make it sound like the laws will reduce crime and prevent school shootings, stuff like that. I just don't see that happening. If criminals don't buy their guns legally, and why would they, being criminals and all, then a billion laws won't change anything for them. Right you are, Ben nodded. Dave signed the bottom of the form, dated it, and slid it across the glass display case over to Ben. So what happens next? I wait 3 days to see if I have a criminal record, then I can come back and get it? Essentially, yes. There's the 3-day wait, then there's the background check, which has to come back with some kind of response within 3 days. So the two kind of run neck and neck in this state. I guess I'll see you in 3 days then. My record is spotless. I'm a little unhappy that I have to go 3 days without self-defense while a homicidal maniac is trying to kill me and my family, just to theoretically prevent someone else from committing a crime with a legally acquired gun. I still can't wrap my head around that. That's 'cause it ain't about being logical. Gun laws are about being emotional. Otherwise, we'd take away cars from people who got caught driving drunk, or would require them to have breathalyzers installed in their vehicles. A drunk driver kills someone every 52 minutes in this country, and we ain't really doing a damn thing about it. Give them a fine, suspend their license, make them go to AA meetings. Bunch of nonsense. More people are killed every year by automobiles than by guns, but you don't see people all emotional about that. You know why? No? Because just about everyone drives, and no one has an emotional reaction to seeing a car. And though people do run people over deliberately, it doesn't happen every day. And cars weren't designed for killing. But a gun? It's meant to kill. That's its job. And that freaks some people out. Scares the living shit out of them. People who are terrified of something usually ain't rational about it. Now are they? You just might be onto something there, Ben. I'm going to give the matter more thought. Thanks for helping me pick out a gun and shining some light on the whole gun law thing. Dave reached out and shook Ben's hand, then walked out of the store, wondering if the hugely divisive issue was really that simple. When he got back to his sister's house, it was empty. There was a note on the table from Nikki saying that she, Jake, and Joy had gone to the park. He checked his business email on his laptop and responded to a few inquiries about piano tuning. He had nothing else to do now but wait. He leaned back and looked at the ceiling. And as he cleared his mind, one thing wouldn't budge. Ron. This bastard Ron was imprinted on every moment of his life. He grabbed his cell phone off the table and called the police again. He needed to know that something had been done about this asshole. Dave was surprised when his call was transferred to another line and someone actually picked up. Criminal Investigations, Burke. Officer Burke? I finally got a hold of you. It's Sergeant. Who's this? This is Dave Parsons. You were at my house a few days ago. Name doesn't ring a bell, but what can I do for you? Dave heard phones ringing and people talking in the background. Well, I was hoping you could give me an update on the person who assaulted me, like telling me that he's in jail. Case number? Dave looked around. One of the officers had given him a business card with the case number written on the back. He had no idea where it was now. Probably at his house. I don't have the number. Surely you remember talking to me just 2 days ago? I'm sorry, what did you say your name is? Parsons. Dave Parsons. Right. I'm sorry, Mr. Parsons, but I talked to a lot of people in 2 days. If you can get the case number and call back at our main number... Wait! How many people reported getting their head bashed in with a cell phone and having a rock with a threatening note tossed through their window and their house set on fire shortly thereafter? Does that ring a bell? Yes, it does. You say you're calling for an update? 2 days later? Yes. Can you tell me if the man has been arrested and facing trial? Unless something has changed, and I won't know without looking up the case, the alleged assailant is not in custody. Now, if that's all, Mr. Parsons, I have... Wait! Please! Can you tell me why he's not in jail? If he's not locked up, my family is in danger. I understand your concern, but the fact is, he had an alibi. I'll call you if anything changes, which is highly unlikely. But I'm out of time and I have no further information I can possibly give you until something changes. Have a good day, Mr. Parsons. Dave sat there stunned, holding the now silent phone to his ear. Did the police even care that he, his wife, and his child were in danger from a psychotic man who had already attacked them several times? He thought of Yvonne's apparent lack of concern about Theodore and detected a pattern here. Nobody fucking cares. He was convinced they were doing nothing more than going through the motions. These were the people society relied upon and trusted for their protection. And yet, if they actually managed to protect someone, it would only be because they were going through the motions of protection. Sometimes they'd help, and sometimes, most possibly, they wouldn't. Did they care either way? It didn't seem like it. Curious about Ron Mackey, he decided to Google him to see if anything came up. One of the results that wasn't related to what he was looking for, but was interesting nonetheless, was about a woman who had been beaten by her ex-boyfriend. Her attorney, named Stephen Mackey, filed a restraining order against the man, and because of his serious threats of violence against her, advised her to get a concealed carry permit. She had applied and waited for it, but was later killed by the ex-boyfriend, while the permit languished in someone's office weeks after it should have been approved or denied. Great. You have to wait to buy a gun, and then if you're approved, you need to get approval to actually have it with you. Maybe they should include an 800 number to call when you're in a situation needing to defend yourself so you can ask for approval to actually fire the gun too. He clicked back and looked at the search results again. Included in the list was one for court proceedings for a man named Ronald R. Mackey, arrested for homicide. Scanning down a list of actions such as arraignment, bail posting, and other court procedures, he finally came to disposition. The man had served 6 years and was released on probation. This couldn't be the same Ron, but the city matched. He went back up the list to an affidavit and found the address. It didn't match his Ron. He went back to the Google search results and found one listing all the Ron Mackeys nationwide. He clicked Florida, then Sarasota, and there was a list of addresses connected to this Ron. One of them matched the address for the man convicted of manslaughter on the original second-degree homicide charge. Another of the addresses was the one where Dave had tuned the piano. A chill seized his heart. He slammed the laptop lid down and slid his chair away from the table. Ron Mackey had already killed someone, done time, and been released. He wasn't just a violent bully. He was a bona fide murderer. The police undoubtedly knew the bastard's record and still didn't seem to give a shit that he was now violently attacking people again. Dave now understood that he and his family were in greater danger than he had thought. And it was already bad to begin with. He also realized that when it came to protection, he was essentially on his own. The police could only act after the law had been broken, and they didn't appear to be too concerned about doing anything. During an actual assault, he had no one but himself to rely on, and he had to wait for government approval to even do that if he wanted to do it the most effective way possible. He reluctantly decided it was time to call his brother. Before he even found his brother's name in his list of contacts, he heard a car pull into the driveway. He ran to the window and saw that it was Joy, Nikki, and Jake. He'd have to call Danny later. He couldn't have the conversation he intended to have in front of them. He was determined to keep as few people as possible from knowing about anything he did that was illegal.